Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. We're talking this morning about the fight over abortion. The governor and state lawmakers have now delayed a special legislative session until July 25th. That session had been set to start Wednesday, but legislative leaders say they need more time to hammer out details on a potential abortion ban in the state of Indiana. Indiana's top lawyer, ready for lawmakers to act. Garrett Berquist is with Attorney General Todd Rokita.
Mr. Attorney General, now we've had the Dobbs ruling come down. Where does this leave Indiana, legally speaking?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's no constitutional right to an abortion, so we immediately filed 3 motions in different courts to lift the bans that those courts had put on other Indiana laws on the basis that there was a constitutional right to abortion. That's why they put the bans on. But since there wasn't anymore, we've motioned to lift those injunctions. So the point is that now it's cascading onto other state laws, and we're working really hard to make sure that every life could be saved.
Do you want to see lawmakers enact a total ban on abortion?
Well, I want the lawmakers to be lawmakers. I'm not one anymore, so it's not my prerogative to push on them now. Personally, and I've said many times on cameras and in microphones everywhere, I'm a no exceptions candidate and office holder. So I would like to see them do that, but I want them to see them do their job, to debate this, to come up with something hopefully at least close to that. But I want them to remember the surveys that they filled out, the promises they've made to voters, the things they've said at microphones, and I want them to be consistent with what they've said.
You said no exceptions, so do you believe there shouldn't even be exceptions for rape or incest?
Well, the issue with that is, and they're terrible, horrific circumstances and issues, and thank the Lord, they're not prevalent. They don't happen as much as other abortions, but it doesn't make the baby any less innocent, and that's the real hard part about this.
So, and then as for the question that's been raised about medical necessity, what about to save the life of the mother? What about situations like that?
Yeah, those are very hard situations, and again, they're rare, thank the Lord. But again, we have to really try to help both patients at that time. We have to always remember there's 2 patients. But again, if lawmakers have that exception, would I be supportive of them? Of course I would.
But I just want to be clear.
Because it's a huge situation. And again, I'm not a lawmaker. I will have to defend the constitutionality of any law that they make. So my role in this, what I want to do, is make sure that the language that they come up with, whatever it is, survives in court in a post-Roe world.
You brought up these are rare cases, but they do still happen. So You're saying even in those circumstances, you believe the woman should bear the child?
Well, I've always said that we have to try and to protect both. And at some point, one's going to have to win out, but those are going to have to be done between the doctor, probably in an operating room and all that. So it's really not for me here in this office to promulgate what should happen in every case, but the idea that we have to respect both lives is what I'm talking about.
Have lawmakers contacted you about any draft legislation they're working on, or are you working with them on?
Oh yes, as they do for all kinds of legislation. Yeah, there's been several conversations, not only with me, but with my attorneys, and questions about language in different pieces of proposed legislation, yes.
So are you providing input as to how to craft those bills?
Yes, as we do for every bill. No, I can't say every bill they come to us with, but they often come to us with questions that they may have from a constitutional standpoint. And I have attorneys in my office that answer those questions. I answer those questions for them.
What questions have they come to you with?
Basic questions about, even more complicated questions about what the post-Roe decision means. If we wrote a law this way, would it survive constitutionality? Or that way, would it be better? Those kinds of questions. And otherwise, being their attorney, I have to, I want to respect their confidentiality, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying the kinds of things they're working on.
Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears said that he will not prosecute any crimes that could potentially be created under a potential abortion statute. Do you want lawmakers to give the Attorney General the power to prosecute those cases if the local prosecutors won't do it?
That's not something I'm pushing. I'm trying to respect the prerogative of local prosecutors and the discretion that they've enjoyed in determining whether or not charges on specific cases should be filed. Mr. Mears is bringing this into a whole new realm, though, because he's categorically saying he's not prosecuting certain types of crimes. And it's not just abortion cases that I've heard him say, it's also marijuana cases and other things. So that's a different question when you categorically say, hey, I'm not even going to prosecute this type of crime. And so that's going to be for the lawmakers to decide. I have not brought that idea to the lawmakers. Do I stand ready to prosecute crimes that aren't being prosecuted by prosecutors around the state? Yes.
Justice Clarence Thomas, in his concurring opinion, wrote that the Supreme Court should revisit some similar substantive due process cases, namely the ones that, among other things, legalize access to contraception, legalize same-sex relationships, same-sex marriage. Do you want to see the Supreme Court overturn any of those cases? Would you sign on to any of that?
I think they have to, all these cases should be looked at from the standpoint of constitutionality. And just because the Supreme Court decided a case one way before doesn't mean they were right. So there is a concept called stare decisis, that once an issue's been settled, it doesn't have to be re-looked at again. That doesn't mean it doesn't ever have to be looked at. That doesn't mean that circumstances and fact patterns change that may make overturning an opinion the right thing to do. That was the case with Roe, and that took 50 years. So to the extent that there's no constitutional right to some of these things, yeah, it should always be looked at. And that doesn't matter whatever the issue is. So I'm not commenting on the list that Judge Clarence Thomas may have prescribed, except for the fact that those are examples of issues where there's a question about whether or not it's actually in the Constitution in terms of a right, and so that's always ripe for looking at again.
All right, coming up, we bring in Indiana's best political team and ask what to expect from state lawmakers on abortion next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Allie Bartlett and Democrat Drew Anderson. Happy 4th of July weekend to you both. Let's talk here about the future of abortion in Indiana. Allie, we'll start with you this weekend. Do you think lawmakers will ban abortion without exceptions? And do you think they should ban it without exceptions?
Well, I think that, like I said when we discussed this last week, they're going to take this obligation very seriously. These are the people that have been elected throughout our state to represent us as the people of the state of Indiana. I think they're taking the time to do their due diligence on what their constituents believe in and would like to see happen here. Do I think that they are necessarily going to do a full ban without any sort of exceptions? I don't. Like I said last time, I'm not an elected lawmaker, and so, you know, my opinion I'll share with my lawmakers for sure. But I think what they need to do is just take a clear look at this and make a logical decision. I think that's what they're going to do.
Your thoughts, Drew?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, my friend Allie got her wish and Roe was overturned. And now we're in this situation where essentially Hoosiers are at mercy with an extreme supermajority here. And I think at the end of the day, I'm going to point back to that Ball State poll, 2019, only 17% of Hoosiers want a full ban. And there was a story today in the news about how a 10-year-old girl experienced sexual assault and was impregnated by a family member and had to get an abortion here in Indiana. And it just pains my heart if the Republicans are going to go that extreme and not let victims of rape, incest, and protecting the life of the mother have access to a legal and safe abortion. And I really hope they don't go that extreme.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Drew, we know an abortion ban of some kind, though, likely will happen. Do you think Democrats can put enough pressure to convince lawmakers to add some exceptions, rather?
I mean, we're really trying. All this week, we have crisscrossed the state, hitting every zone, really trying to take the message directly to voters about how we're worried that the Republicans are going to go really extreme. And look, at the end of the day, let's remember this. This special session was supposed to be about a rebate check, and it's not now. It's about abortion. And it really shows the motives of the other side, that it wasn't really about that kitchen table issue of inflation. It was actually about their social issue. And at the end of the day, I think that is what voters are going to see, not a check. And it's going to show where the agenda really rests with the Republicans.
Ali, your thoughts on that, and specifically that case that Drew brought up? I mean, that's just, it's just awful.
Right. Now, I
don't think
will
we're going to see
say
something
that
like that, do
the
you?
Indiana legislature has no control over when the Supreme Court of the United States releases its opinions. It just so happens that we did have a special session scheduled for this time to return hard-earned money to Hoosiers through the tax rebate that Drew's discussing there.
But Ali, this session could have been held in June, no?
Came out at this time, and so it is something that we're going to take up because it's something that Hoosiers care about. It's something that the entire country cares about right now. It's an appropriate time to talk about it, and that's what we're going to do. With the particular case that he brought up, of course, our legislators are going to take things like that into consideration. And like I said, I know for a fact that they are doing their due diligence on what this law should look like. It's a whole new landscape that they're able to work with. They're going to be talking to experts. They're going to be talking to their constituents, and every situation like that is going to be considered. And they're going to do at the end of the day what's right and what's the will of the people.
Go ahead, Drew.
I want to push back gently about the whole expert line that Ali said, just because the experts in another issue that is permitless carry said that permitless carry would be bad for the state, and look what happened. They ignored the experts, they ignored law enforcement, and they pushed it through anyway. So I don't have any hope that Republicans are going to listen to experts at all.
So I have about 90 seconds left for this segment. We're already, and Drew, I'll go with you on this one. We're already setting up for a potential showdown with Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears, who says that he won't prosecute cases under an abortion ban. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, he's doing the right thing. He's reflecting what constituents in his county actually believe in when it comes to their votes. And Marion County voters largely support the right for a woman to choose to have a legal and safe abortion, and he's doing directly what his voters want. And at the end of the day, it's a real winner for him because it's what the majority of Hoosiers want.
Ali?
I would say it's the right thing for prosecutors to do is stop and prosecute under the law. I would be surprised, though, if Ryan Mears doesn't prosecute under the law, because we've seen that from him time and time again.
Okay, we're having a little trouble hearing you there, but one last question before we go to the break here. What's the impact, Drew? And I think because your audio is working, I'll go to you again on this one.
Sorry, Ali.
The impact when it comes to politics, political-wise, come November and Election Day.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, everything's going to be in the suburbs. Right here where I live in Carmel, voters are going to really, put their foot down and tell Republicans that their extremist agenda is not the future that they want for their families or for the state.
Okay. We'll see what happens. Drew, Ali, stick with us. Ali, we'll get your audio working. Thank you. We'll talk other Supreme Court decisions after the break and the January 6th Commission coming up next on All Indiana Politics. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics. Democrat Drew Anderson and Republican Ali Bartlett are still with us here. Good to see you both. Another major story, as you very well know this week, the testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, a top aide to Mark Meadows, to the January 6th committee. Now, Ali, and I think we have your audio working once again. You heard the testimony. You've heard several days of reaction to it. Does what you heard change Republican opinion about Donald Trump on January 6th or Donald Trump in 2024, Ali?
I think that this entire hearing process is so played out and people are not even paying attention anymore, to be honest with you. I think people are over the discussion, and I think people are pretty set in their ways about how they feel about President Trump or otherwise, and they're ready to move on and focus on 2024. So to answer your question directly, I don't think it impacts people's views of President Trump or what's going to happen in 24.
Drew, I'll let you get in here in a moment, but Ali, I have to push back for one moment because that testimony, I mean, that was eye-opening stuff.
Yeah, in some ways it was. I just think, based upon what I'm hearing from people within my party, I just truly don't think that it's something that people are focusing on at this time. I think people are sick of hearing about it. And I think people wish that Congress would take its resources and focus on things that matter a little bit more at this time.
Do you think she was telling the truth, Ali?
I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know what her role was within the White House. I couldn't even begin to guess. I think that, of course, everyone's testimony should be considered, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball to see whether someone's telling the truth or not. There's plenty of people that have come out and said that that's not true, so I'm not sure.
Drew, this thing changing anybody's minds on the Republican side?
I mean, it definitely isn't. Polling indicates that. I think at the end of the day, the only folks that are sticking with Donald Trump are his super fans. And I say that just because Cassidy was a Republican staffer that worked directly with the president. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work in the White House for a little bit too. And I know that those folks that are in the White House, it's a small world, small bubble. And at the end of the day, if she's willing to go on the record and to swear an oath to the Constitution and tell the truth and tell her story, then there's a lot of truth to that. And especially the part where Donald Trump got really violent, especially the Secret Service folks, that's startling. And at the end of the day, it's unpresidential, and it really, pulls the curtain back on what kind of hostility was in that White House.
And according to the polls, Drew, as you very well know, we are starting to see Ron DeSantis on the Republican side starting to surge a little bit. And it seems like the timing on this kind of coincides with the committee.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, what you're going to see is a Republican Party that's going to continue to lurch further and further to the right. And I think they're leaving Donald Trump behind. And that, to me, and to Democrats and independents, that's scary, because they're going to be pushing an agenda that, honestly, and we're going to talk about this in a second with the Supreme Court rulings that came down. It's basically the beginning of Gilead, y'all, and I'm a little worried.
So let's talk about those other stories coming out of the Supreme Court. We saw that the Supreme Court strike down a New York gun law, EPA clean air regulations, and a rule in favor of a Washington coach who prayed at a football game, a number of them throughout the years. Drew, this kind of seems like the court conservatives have been hoping for, no?
It definitely is. And it's another reminder that elections have consequences, and Democrats need to really turn out this year for the midterms. And I will say, when it comes to the ruling specifically, the coach praying on the field, like, anyone should be able to pray however they want, wherever they want. That's what our country stands for, regardless of religion. I think the things that really stand out to me was the gun opinion, where basically the day before they overturned the right for a woman to choose, and said it was the state's issue, they threw down an opinion saying that owning a gun was a national 50 states across the board issue. And it just really shows how hypocritical and cherry picking this court is really becoming.
Ali, your thoughts on the last 2 weeks? It's been a big couple of weeks here.
Yeah, it has been a big couple of weeks. And I will say that I'm very satisfied with the outcomes that this court has delivered, because it shows one thing. And this is something that I think that everyone needs to keep in mind when they're analyzing these decisions, which is that the court is not a political body. Protesting outside of the Supreme Court, protesting at justices' homes is so inappropriate. Everything that we have seen politicizing these decisions is completely wrong. These decisions are made on a constitutional basis, just as they should be. This is about an analysis of how the Constitution applies to various laws throughout the United States. And I'm very proud that the justices have been able to separate themselves from the external pressures that they've been facing.
Well, but Ali, I mean, that's what they're supposed to be, but we all know that there are judges on that court that lean both ways.
Can I chime in real quick?
Go ahead.
The approval rating for the Supreme Court has dropped drastically over the years. It's now like at 25% approval, which has never seen this low. And honestly, on top of that, too, it's just because judges, it's now become a litmus test for a party and partisanship rather than actually applying the Constitution. And let's remember this. The Constitution was formed just by white men. And if we're going to apply everything by what strictly the Constitution says, that means Ali and I aren't a part of it.
Right. Ali, 30 seconds left. Ali, close us out. Go ahead.
The original Roe versus Wade decision was decided by 7 white men. So what do we say about that?
Republicans, too. It shows how hard extreme parties become.
Made the original decision on Roe versus Wade. And right now, we have the most diverse
Guys, you can take this conversation offline. Good conversation this 4th of July weekend. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll be right back. Well, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great 4th of July, everyone. Stay safe.